The year is 1923. You're a worker in Berlin. This morning, bread costs 250 billion marks. By afternoon, it's 500 billion. Your wallet becomes confetti. You carry a wheelbarrow of cash to the bakery, like you're moving house. The baker weighs banknotes, not coins. Change is a joke. Your life savings fit in a suitcase, then a wheelbarrow, then a bonfire. People literally burn cash for heat. It's cheaper than firewood. Kids make kites out of money. Wallpaper out of money. Art projects out of money. For once, the currency finally has a stable purpose. Crafts. Now imagine trying to plan a future. Rent, food, medicine, every price tag is a moving target. The clock is the new inflation index. Germany didn't lose a war and then lose money. It lost money so fast it lost society's trust. That's the real currency, by the way. And here's where the dark humor kicks in. They called it a temporary emergency. Spoiler alert, emergencies love permanent residents. So how did an industrial nation turn itself into a live-action economics lecture? The answer isn't magic. It's debt, politics, and a printing press. In January 1923, $1 bought 18,000 marks. Annoying. Survivable. 10 months later, it bought 4.2 trillion. That isn't depreciation. At peak, prices doubled every 3.7 days. Not year over year. Try breakfast to dinner. Do the math on any contract written Tuesday. One egg hit 320 billion marks. An egg. Something you drop and apologize to, because it's basically today's paycheck for normal people. The tragedy is boringly simple. The government owed money it couldn't pay, so it did the most human thing imaginable. Changed the definition of money. They thought printing would buy time. It did. The same way pouring gasoline buys you warmth when you're cold. Briefly. Then you're on fire. Weimar hyperinflation isn't ancient folklore. It's the cleanest case study of what happens when politics collides with arithmetic at full speed. And yes, every generation hears this story and whispers, "But we're smarter." Oh, you sweet summer child. Humans repeat mistakes like it's tradition. The point isn't that inflation is always around the corner. The point is that once trust breaks, you don't negotiate with it. You beg. So we're going to do an autopsy. Not a sermon. An engineering report on how a functioning economy becomes a comedy club with empty shelves. Because if you understand Weimar, you understand why just print it is never a plan. It's a confession that the math already lost. Picture 6 wounds. War debt, the printing solution. Velocity turns feral, society fractures, the economy gets bizarre, and politics goes radioactive. We'll meet Marta, a middle-class teacher whose salary turns to dust, a farmer who won't trade food for paper, and Schacht, the fireman. Spoiler alert, it wasn't an accident. It was a series of choices that made perfect political sense and catastrophic economic sense. Different languages, same meeting. If you're waiting for a villain twirling a mustache, you'll be disappointed. The villain is incentives, plus fear, plus a machine that prints consequences. By the end, you'll know the rule governments never escape. You can't print your way to prosperity. You can only print your way to crisis. Wound 1 is war debt. Germany loses World War I and then gets the bill for it. Reparations, pensions, and a bruised treasury. The old empire is gone. The new republic inherits the invoices and the riots. Everyone wants stability. Nobody wants to pay for it. War doesn't end when the shooting stops. It ends when the accountants stop screaming. In Weimar, the accountants never slept. Reparations demanded foreign currency and gold-backed payments. That matters because you can't just conjure gold at home with patriotic speeches. Inside Germany, the government also owed its own citizens. War bonds, promises to veterans, social spending to keep streets from exploding. So the state is trapped between two fires. External demands it can't control, and internal voters it can't disappoint. Guess which fire wins elections? Now meet Marta. She's 34, a teacher in a decent Berlin school. She did everything right. Degree, discipline, a respectable civil service job. Her salary is marks. Her rent is marks. But coal, chemicals, and some food increasingly need foreign currency. The world doesn't accept vibes. Germany's tax system is weak after the war. Collection is chaotic. Local governments bicker. The central budget becomes a wish list with no cashier. They could have raised taxes hard and cut spending hard. They didn't, because the politics of austerity is basically volunteering to get fired. So deficits become normal. Borrowing becomes normal. And the idea that money is a political tool becomes normal. That's the seed. Then 1923 arrives with a new surprise. The Ruhr. France and Belgium occupy it to enforce reparations. Germany responds with passive resistance, which is a polite phrase for stop working, keep getting paid. The government funds strikes and sabotage. Production collapses. Wages keep flowing. Imagine paying everyone to not make anything, while demanding goods still exist. That's not economics. That's performance art with a budget deficit. Tax revenues drop because factories are silent, but expenses rise because you're paying workers anyway. It's a fiscal treadmill, and the belt speeds up. Marta watches the school heat get turned down. Parents whisper about shortages. Newspapers fill with arguments, not solutions. Everyone blames someone else. Here's the kicker. The reparations crisis doesn't just hurt finances, it breaks legitimacy. People stop believing the state can protect their basic lives. And once legitimacy cracks, every policy becomes harder. The government needs calm to fix numbers. The numbers create panic. Panic destroys calm. So the leadership reaches for the lever that avoids immediate pain. The lever that postpones conflict. The lever that makes tomorrow a problem for tomorrow. That lever is the printing press. Not because they were stupid, because they were terrified, cornered, and desperate to keep the country from snapping. Wound one ends like this. The state is bleeding money, trust, and time. And it's about to treat blood loss with ink. Wound two is the printing solution. The government can't raise taxes fast enough. It can't borrow cheaply. So it manufactures marks like it's manufacturing hope. In theory, printing is a bridge. You print today, stabilize tomorrow, then you pay it back. In practice, bridges become lifestyles. The state pays Ruhr workers to strike. It pays companies to limp along. It pays bureaucrats. It buys foreign currency for reparations. To buy dollars or francs, you sell marks. Print more, dump more marks, and the mark weakens. It's self-harm with paperwork. Marta's paycheck rises in nominal terms. She gets raises that look impressive on paper. In reality, they're race bibs in a marathon against prices. If you've never seen hyperinflation, imagine salary negotiation as a hostage talk. You don't ask for better. You ask to survive until Friday. The Reichsbank keeps discounting government paper because saying no feels like causing unemployment. So it says yes and causes a different unemployment of money. Absurd detail. The presses couldn't keep up. They ran day and night, printing notes that lost value before the ink cooled. When the currency is melting, people stop holding it. They spend immediately. That's rational. It's also gasoline on the fire because velocity explodes. Shopkeepers start repricing multiple times per day. Menus become blank boards. The price is whatever the clerk guessed 5 minutes ago. The state tries price controls, moral lectures, and patriotic posters. Inflation reads all of it and politely continues doing what arithmetic tells it to do. Marta starts shopping the moment she's paid. Not for luxury, just anything that won't evaporate. Sugar, soap, coal, canned food, anything with weight. This is where the middle class realizes a brutal truth. Saving money is now a form of self-harm. The responsible behavior becomes the stupid behavior. And the irresponsible behavior, spending instantly, grabbing assets, borrowing, becomes smart everywhere. Hyperinflation turns virtue into a punchline, on schedule. People borrow millions of marks and repay with lunch money. Debt evaporates. If you're a debtor, you grin. If you're a creditor, you're finished. The government tells itself, we're stimulating demand. But demand isn't the problem. Supply is broken. Trust is broken. And the currency is a hot potato. Foreign lenders flee. Domestic lenders demand insane interest, so the state prints more. The solution creates the problem, then sells itself as the cure. Somebody inevitably says, but it's different this time. Different technologies, same physics. Money is a claim on goods. You can't print goods. By mid-1923, the mark is no longer money. It's a rapidly decaying coupon you're forced to use. You spend it to escape it. And once a society learns to escape its own currency, it doesn't unlearn that overnight. That memory sticks like smoke in fabric. Wound 2 ends with a new rule written into every brain. Hold anything except marks. Gold, dollars, coal, land, cigarettes, even bottles of schnapps. Because in Weimar Germany, the only stable store of value was something you could smoke, drink, eat, or bury in the yard. We're only 2 wounds in. Germany paid people to stop producing, then printed money to pretend it wasn't insane. Welcome to modernity. Question: if your paycheck lost value hourly, what's your first move? Buy food, buy dollars, buy anything durable, or leave the country. Because hyperinflation isn't just numbers. It's a behavioral stampede. When everyone runs for the exit at once, the doorframe breaks. Next wound is the velocity spiral, where spending speeds up inflation, which speeds up spending. It's the economic version of a screaming feedback mic. And yes, this is where the story shifts from bad policy to pure absurdity. You cannot make this stuff up, and they did anyway. Wound 3 is velocity. Once people expect money to lose value, holding it feels like being mugged by your own pocket, so they spend instantly. The faster they spend, the faster prices rise. The faster prices rise, the faster they spend. Congratulations, a doomed carousel. Businesses stop trusting the mark for long contracts. Suppliers demand payment up front. Workers demand payment more often. The economy becomes short-term survival. Some companies pay wages twice a day, not as a perk, because waiting until Friday means your employee can't afford lunch on Wednesday. MARTA starts timing errands like a military operation. Payday, sprint to shops, convert marks into groceries. Teaching becomes a hobby between inflation shocks. The mark's fall also hits imports. Germany needs coal and raw materials. As the currency weakens, imports cost more, factories struggle, supply tightens. Tight supply plus panicked spending equals empty shelves. Empty shelves make panic worse. The feedback loop closes like a trapdoor. The government blames speculators. They're always convenient because you can yell at them instead of fixing your balance sheet problem. But speculation isn't the engine here. Expectation is. Once everyone expects tomorrow's price higher, buying today is rational, even if it looks insane. The cruel part is how quickly normal life breaks. Savings become jokes. Insurance becomes scraps. A pension becomes a cruel prank with paperwork. Cash loses value so fast that making change is pointless. Shops stop giving coins. They give candy, stamps, or nothing. Kindergarten economics. Landlords demand rent in foreign currency or goods. Farmers demand payment in salt, coal, or cigarettes. Legal tender becomes a word you laugh at. Barter returns, not because it's efficient, but because it's stable. A sack of potatoes doesn't depreciate 30% while you blink. Now meet our farmer, Ernst. He has eggs and grain. He refuses to sell for marks because he's not trading food for melting paper. Officials show up with threats. Ernst shrugs. You can't intimidate a man holding the necessities. The city needs him more than he needs the city. Meanwhile, the tax system collapses in real terms. Taxes are assessed in marks, collected later, and worth less by collection day. The state's revenue vaporizes. To cover that hole, the state prints more, which makes the mark fall faster, which makes taxes worth even less. It's a self-accelerating bankruptcy. This is the moment hyperinflation stops being an economic issue and becomes a time issue. The unit of account isn't marks, it's minutes. People rush to tangible assets, art, land, tools, anything. But the rich get there first. The poor get leftovers and lectures. Marta sells her grandmother's silver spoon set. Not for profit, for coal and bread. The middle class starts cannibalizing itself to stay warm. By late 1923, the currency is basically a rumor. It exists because law says it exists. The market votes otherwise every hour. Wound 3 ends with a society that can't plan, can't save, and can't trust. The economy still moves, but it moves like a riot. Wound 4 is social collapse. Once money stops working, society doesn't politely adjust. It panics, it hoards, it blames, and it fractures. Money is supposed to be a social contract. I accept your paper today because I trust you'll accept it tomorrow. In Weimar, tomorrow cancels itself. Marta checks her savings and feels nausea. Years of careful budgeting turn into a number that buys a loaf, then half, then nothing. Hyperinflation doesn't hit everyone equally. If you own land, factories, or foreign currency, you hedge. If you earn a salary, you get liquidated. Teachers, clerks, engineers, the respectable spine of a country, watch their status evaporate. The poor were already poor. The middle class gets deleted. Pensioners suffer a special cruelty. They planned for old age with fixed payments. Inflation turns those promises into a monthly insult delivered on time. Families start selling heirlooms, furniture, even wedding rings. Not because they're reckless, because they're trading memories for calories and coal. Public services degrade fast. Schools get colder. Trains get unreliable. Civil servants quit because their wages can't buy lunch. The state unplugs itself. Street life gets meaner, not cinematic chaos, small humiliations, lines, shouting, pushing, rumors. The kind of daily stress that turns neighbors into predators. Politics fills the vacuum with certainty. Every party offers a simple villain. Bankers, foreigners, Jews, communists, capitalists. Pick your scapegoat flavor. Extremists recruit like it's a sale. Your life is collapsing, and we have a story. People buy stories when bread is unaffordable. Marta sees former students join street groups for meals and belonging. Economic despair doesn't just empty wallets. It empties identities, then refills them with rage. Corruption becomes normal. Bribes in foreign currency. Under-the-table deals. Everyone learns rules are for people with safety nets and options. At the same time, debts get wiped. Mortgage holders suddenly look brilliant. Borrowers repay with pocket change. Justice feels random, so resentment spikes. Businesses turn into survival organisms. They fire workers, then rehire, then pay in goods. Employers aren't villains. They're just drowning too. People stop trusting banks. They stop trusting contracts. They stop trusting news. When institutions lose credibility, conspiracy theories become a mental health strategy. And here's the quiet horror. You can't rebuild a middle class overnight. When it's gone, the skills, habits, and patience disappear with it. By now, Germany isn't just poorer. It's angrier. It's more paranoid. It's a country where every conversation ends with someone saying, "This can't go on," which is true. But the next step isn't automatically reform. Sometimes the next step is someone's strong takeover. That's where this story's heading. Before we get there, we need to talk about the bizarre economy. When cigarettes become savings accounts and money becomes performance art. Because hyperinflation doesn't just destroy prices. It rewires behavior. It teaches people to treat society like a game you win by cheating faster. Wound 4 ends with a nation that still has factories and farms, but no shared trust. And without shared trust, wealth is just stuff. Wound 5 is the bizarre economy. When money fails, people invent replacements immediately. Not elegant replacements. Weird, local, duct-taped replacements. Cities and companies issue emergency money. Little notes meant to be temporary. They call it not guild. It's basically, trust us, we're improvising. Some notes are beautifully designed, like a collectible postcard. Which is fitting, because their main function becomes being collected, not spent. Cigarettes become a common unit. They're divisible, portable, and everyone agrees they're real. Also, they're literally taxed with your lungs. A worker gets paid and immediately converts to cigarettes, coal, or canned food. The currency has become a relay baton. Nobody wants to hold it. Restaurants rewrite menus daily, sometimes hourly. A beer costs one price when you sit down and another when you pay. Time is surcharge. People use foreign currency if they can. Dollars, francs, anything stable. Officially, it's frowned upon. Practically, it's survival, like black market oxygen. Bank accounts turn into comedy. Interest rates don't matter when the principal is rotting. The concept of saving becomes a fairy tale for children. Speculators and traders thrive, not because they're geniuses, but because volatility rewards the fastest hands. Hyperinflation turns markets into a knife fight. Meanwhile, basic goods become political overnight. Flour, coal, milk, these aren't products anymore. They're leverage. Whoever controls them controls peace. Ernst the farmer realizes the city's desperation is his bargaining power. He trades eggs for tools, clothing, and real materials. Marks don't enter the conversation. Marta watches students trade sandwiches like currency. When kids are pricing lunch in commodities, your monetary system has been voted off the island. The absurdity spreads. People pay taxes with stamps, pay bills with bundles, and tip with whatever holds value that week. Accounting becomes fiction writing. This is why hyperinflation feels like madness. Every day invents a rule, then deletes it. Your brain can't adapt, so it quits. Some people get rich in real assets. Most people get poorer in real life. The gap widens, and envy becomes an additional national industry. All of this happens while Germany still has engineers and factories. That should terrify you. Complexity doesn't save you from math. Wound 5 ends with a lesson you can smell. When money fails, everything becomes a negotiation. Every purchase becomes a moral decision. And in that environment, politics doesn't calm down. It escalates, because the fastest way to fix chaos is to promise order at any price. Wound 6 is the political consequence. When your currency dies, it doesn't just erase savings. It erases faith in the system that issued it. People don't remember spreadsheets. They remember humiliation. The teacher begging, the pensioner freezing, the wheelbarrow of cash. Trauma becomes political fuel. Democracy in Weimar was young and fragile. Hyperinflation teaches millions that normal politics means chaos, and chaos means someone must be guilty. Extremist movements offer a clean trade. Give us power, and we'll give you stability. In a frightened society, stability sounds like mercy. Street politics intensifies. Paramilitary groups clash. Newspapers scream. Everyone is certain the other side is about to destroy the country first. But wait, it gets worse. The crisis rewards lies. A simple story beats a complicated truth. It's their fault beats we overspent and printed. Marta doesn't become radical because she loves ideology. She becomes radical because she wants her life to stop dissolving. That's how mass politics works. Ernst the farmer becomes suspicious of cities, banks, and politicians. He's not wrong to be cautious, but suspicion spreads like mold when trust is gone. Now enter Hjalmar Schacht, the fireman. Late in 1923, Germany essentially says, enough. The printing stops. A new currency is introduced. It's called the Rentenmark, backed by real assets, with a hard limit. Not because it's magical, but because it forces discipline on the state. Stabilization also means fiscal pain, spending cuts, better tax collection, and an end to, we'll just monetize it. The hangover finally arrives, and it works. Prices stop sprinting. People breathe again. Shops can post a price and keep it there long enough to feel human. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Stopping hyperinflation is technically easy. You stop printing. The hard part is political, surviving the consequences. And the consequences don't vanish. The middle class remembers who stole their savings, even if the thief was policy rather than a person. That resentment doesn't disappear when the currency stabilizes. It waits. Then the next crisis arrives, and the old anger finds new targets. Hyperinflation becomes a national scar. Later, when downturns hit, Germans fear inflation like fire. That fear shapes politics for generations. Wound 6 ends with a warning. You can repair a currency quickly, but repairing trust is a decades-long project. Sometimes it never fully completes. And if you're wondering whether this has modern parallels, yes. Not identical events, identical incentives. Governments still choose short-term relief over long-term math. So we're left with two futures, and they're not just German futures. They're the two paths every indebted state eventually faces. Future A is painful honesty. You admit the bills exist, you tax what you promised, you cut what you can't afford, you stop anesthetizing, you protect the currency like infrastructure, because it is. You make the central bank boring again. You treat stability as a feature. You let bad investments fail instead of bailing them out with printed comfort. People hate it at first. Then they slowly remember how planning feels. Marta, in this future, goes back to being a teacher instead of a full-time inflation sprinter. Her salary isn't thrilling. It's predictable, which is luxury. Ernst, in this future, sells eggs for actual money again. Not because he trusts politicians, but because the rules finally stop changing every sunrise. That's the Renaissance path. Discipline, reform, boring competence, and a political class willing to lose elections for long-term survival. Rare, but possible. Future B is the seductive shortcut. You keep printing because it avoids today's riots. You keep blaming villains because it avoids today's accountability. Your currency becomes a hot potato. Capital flees, talent leaves. The middle class stops believing in contracts, then stops believing in democracy. Eventually, someone promises order. Not prosperity, order. And people accept it because chaos is exhausting and hunger is persuasive. Daily. In Germany's case, the story didn't end with a wheelbarrow. It ended with a country that would do anything to never feel that humiliation again. And that's the darkest lesson. Monetary collapse isn't just economic damage. It's political chemistry. It turns fear into power and suffering into permission. If you take one thing from Weimar, take this. Short-term fixes don't stay short-term. They compound, and then they pick up a flag. The math doesn't care about our feelings. It doesn't care about speeches or slogans or elections. It just keeps adding up until reality collects. If this story felt uncomfortably familiar, good. That means you still have the ability to feel consequences before they hit your wallet. Next time someone says, "We can spend now and worry later," remember Weimar. Later isn't a date. Later is a crisis that arrives early. Drop a comment with the dumbest, "Just print it," take you've heard in real life. I need new material, and politicians keep recycling mine. If you want more economic autopsies with fewer bedtime stories, subscribe. We'll keep reading the reports so you don't have to lose sleep. And if you're watching from a country running deficits like it's a hobby, don't panic. Just check the numbers and watch the incentives. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, try not to light your savings on fire for warmth. History already did that joke.